Elohim. That's the very first name of God you encounter in the entire Bible, right there in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that word translated God, it's Elohim. And before you scroll past that, notice what was happening when he showed up. There was nothing. Not much. Nothing. No raw material, no framework to build on, just a formless, dark, silent void. And into that complete emptiness, he spoke. Structure came out of chaos. Light split the darkness. Something came out of absolutely nothing. Now, here's where this lands for you. If your life right now feels shapeless, if everything around you is scattered and you genuinely can't make sense of the pieces, you are not standing in unfamiliar territory for Elohim. Honestly, you're presenting him with easier conditions than he started with. He built the entire universe from zero. You at least have a starting point. This name carries a weight that a lot of people miss because they read past it too fast. Elohim isn't just saying God exists, it's saying God creates order where there isn't any. He doesn't wait for the conditions to be right before he works. He is the condition. So when you pray this name, you're not repeating a word. You're calling on the one who builds from nothing. The God who doesn't need existing material to make something new.
Jehovah Jireh. This name wasn't born in a comfortable setting, not after a celebration, not in a moment of peace. It came from one of the most wrenching scenes in the entire Bible, Abraham, a man who had waited his entire life for a son, being asked to give that son back. Walk up a mountain, lay him on an altar. And what gets me every single time is that Abraham went. He didn't understand it. He couldn't have slept the night before, couldn't have eaten. But he went. And at the very last moment, not early, at the very last second, God provided a ram caught in a thicket nearby. That's where this name was born. Jehovah Jireh literally means the Lord who sees to it. Not the Lord who might help eventually, not the Lord who will do his best, the Lord who already sees your need and has already positioned the provision. You just haven't walked far enough up the mountain to find it yet. And look, that's genuinely hard to hold on to when the bank account is empty, or the job offer isn't coming, or the rent is due and nothing is moving. It feels like nothing is there. But the name isn't asking you to feel it. It's asking you to trust it. Because the provision was already placed before Abraham ever reached the altar. That pattern hasn't changed.
El Shaddai. Okay, stay with me here. Some scholars trace the root of this word back to the Hebrew for mountain. And when you sit with that image, it actually starts to make sense. Mountains don't explain themselves. They don't justify their size. They don't shrink to make you comfortable. They're simply there. Immovable, undeniable, and everything in their radius adjusts. That's the God this name is pointing to. El Shaddai, the all-sufficient, almighty one. The one whose power doesn't have an upper limit, doesn't run low, doesn't get fatigued. Now here's where this becomes personal. When you're up against something genuinely enormous, I mean, not just stressful, but something that legitimately feels bigger than anything you can handle, the instinct is to measure it. You calculate the odds, you replay the numbers, and most of the time, that math is brutal. But El Shaddai doesn't ask you to pretend the problem isn't big. Your problem might actually be massive. The name doesn't shrink the obstacle. What it does is remind you that your problem, however overwhelming, is not almighty. Only one thing in existence carries that title. And when you pray El Shaddai, you're not living in denial. You're doing something smarter. You're placing your situation next to the right reference point. The giant is still big. It's just not the biggest thing in the room anymore.
Jehovah Shalom. Jehovah Shalom. This one always catches people off guard when they learn where it comes from, because it wasn't named during a peaceful moment, not in a garden, not after a breakthrough. It came from Gideon,
a man hiding inside a wine press, threshing wheat in secret, genuinely terrified of his enemies, and completely convinced that his situation had no good outcome. An angel showed up and called him a mighty warrior. And Gideon's response was essentially, "Are you looking at the same situation I'm in?" But God didn't correct the surroundings. He met Gideon right there, inside the fear. And after that encounter, Gideon built an altar and named it Jehovah Shalom. The Lord is peace. Not peace will arrive one day. Not peace after all of this settles down. The Lord is peace. Present tense. Available right now. So if you're someone who wakes up at 3 a.m. with your mind already running, or you're holding yourself together through a home that feels like a constant battle zone, this name is for exactly that. It's not a promise that your circumstances are about to calm down. It's a promise that there's a person available to you right now whose very presence is the thing your nervous system has been searching for. Peace isn't something you manufacture through enough discipline or the right habits. It's a person you access by name.
Jehovah Shammah. 3 words that are almost too simple. The Lord is there. That's it. But get beneath the surface, and this might be one of the most radical statements anywhere in Scripture. This name comes from the book of Ezekiel, given to a city after one of the most devastating periods in Israel's history. Exile, destruction, silence. A season when God's people had genuinely felt what it means to be left behind. And into that specific grief, this name arrives. Not as a warm feeling, not as a spiritual high, as a declaration. The Lord is there. He was there before you walked into that season. He's there in the hospital room at midnight when visiting hours are over. He's there in the apartment where nobody calls anymore. He's there in the years of life where you stopped expecting to feel truly known by anyone. And here's what makes Shammah different from just saying God is everywhere. It's not a theological fact you file away. It's a personal truth aimed at the specific ache of feeling alone. What's striking is that this name is not conditional. It doesn't say, the Lord will be there when you return to Him, or the Lord was there back when things were better. It's permanent, unconditional. The room you've convinced yourself is empty. It isn't. It never was.
Jehovah Rapha. There's a scene in Exodus that most people rush past. The Israelites have just walked out of Egypt, dramatically, miraculously, and 3 days into the wilderness, they finally find water. Finally. Relief. Except when they taste it, it's bitter, completely undrinkable. And these people are exhausted, desperate, and honestly at the end of their patience. So God tells Moses to throw a specific piece of wood into the water. He does, and the water turns sweet. And right there, God says in Exodus 15:26, I am the Lord who heals you, Jehovah Rapha. Not I am the Lord who has medicine. I am the healing. The identity is the action. And here's the detail that matters most. The bitter water wasn't removed. It was transformed. That distinction is everything, because sometimes healing doesn't look like the sickness disappearing overnight. Sometimes it looks like something that was destroying you getting converted into something that sustains you. And Jehovah Rapha isn't only for physical illness, though it absolutely covers that. It's for grief that won't lift, for emotional damage that resurfaces at odd moments, for the places inside you that still hurt long after whatever caused them is technically over. He doesn't diagnose and prescribe from a distance. He doesn't point you toward the remedy. Right, wrong word. He is the remedy. That's what separates this name from every other kind of help. Jehovah Nissi. In ancient warfare, a banner wasn't decoration. It wasn't carried for ceremony. It was functional in the most urgent possible way. When soldiers were scattered across a battlefield, confused, disoriented, being hit from multiple directions, the banner was the rally point. You looked up, found it, and you knew exactly where to regroup. That image is where this name comes from. After a battle against the Amalekites, when Moses held up his staff, the Israelites prevailed, and when his arms dropped, they started losing. Aaron and Hur came alongside and held his arms up until the victory was complete. And Moses called that place Jehovah Nissi. The Lord is my banner. Now here's where this becomes uncomfortably real for some people. If you've been fighting the same habit for years, the same addiction, the same cycle that keeps defeating you, you probably know what it feels like to run completely out of your own willpower. You've tried discipline. You've tried accountability. You've tried starting over more times than you want to count. And what Nissi is saying is that the fight was never supposed to be won by you alone. More than that, the victory has already been secured. You're not fighting to win. You're fighting from a win that already happened. That shift in posture changes everything. You stop grinding in your own strength trying to earn something that's already been placed in your hands. You just have to look up, find the banner, stay under it.
Jehovah Raah. Of all these names, this one might be the most quietly personal. Not the most thunderous, not the most dramatic, but the most close. It means the Lord is my shepherd. Psalm 23 made it famous. But slow down and actually stay with what that image means. A shepherd doesn't just point the flock in a general direction and hope for the best. He walks ahead of them. He knows which paths are safe and which ones have hidden drops. He recognizes when the sheep are wearing out before they notice it themselves. He carries the ones that can't keep up. And here's the thing about sheep. They're not strategic animals. They don't map out their route. They don't analyze the terrain. They genuinely don't need to, because the shepherd is already doing all of that. So if you're standing at a moment in life where every decision feels like a fork in the road with no clear signpost, truly uncertain, not just slightly nervous, Raah is the name that speaks directly into that. You don't need to see every step ahead. You don't need to understand the full path before you take the first one. You just need to stay close enough to recognize the voice that's leading you. Because the one guiding you knows exactly where he's going, even in the moments when you have no idea. That's not a passive position. Genuinely, that's the most secure position you could possibly stand in.